Today's guest is Gabe Guetta. He's the founder and CEO of SALUS. All right, Gabe, thank you for coming on the show.
I'm excited to be here, Tats.
Awesome. Good to see someone based in Canada to talk to, and also technology and safety. Safety is an area that we love exploring and promoting because I mean you can't be too safe in and around construction or building materials.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting vertical that we chose. My background's not safety, not tech. I kind of fell into this naturally from my construction background, but um, safety is progressing every day and it needs to be a part of the conversation.
Sure. Before we go into like maybe your origin story, I like what were you doing before? I think you were a director of operations, I guess, at a construction company.
Yeah, so I started as a labor in construction at 18 and then worked my way up in that industry from working for a general contractor in high-rise construction to um, running a company that did window installation for high rises, and started as a service tech there. Worked my way up, spent 15 years in the industry, and then through the pain that we were experiencing at that company and a fairly significant incident, safety incident, to kind of push us over the edge. I found my way into the software world.
Yeah. I mean, high rises like every day is everyone's on full alert. I can you tell me about that incident?
Yeah, so it was actually probably about a year after we implemented what I say is the new way of doing safety, or at that time when I first started my career, it was wear a hard hat, steel toe boots, get the job done. The mindset before you started a task was typically, how do I do it faster and better than the person next to me? And then that shifted when I started running the company, not because of me, but because of a customer of ours that said, it was a lead core job site actually. They said, you can't set foot on the site without a safety manual. And I was like, well, think we have one of those. And then they said, well, great, show it to us and then prove you're following it. I'm like, I definitely don't know what you mean by prove you're following it. And so that resulted in a lot of paperwork and everything else. And so a year and a half into that grueling cultural shift to get 55-year-old window installers to fill out paper forms, which is something I hadn't done in probably 10 years, we actually had an incident um, that happened where I still remember the foreman called me as he was running down the stairs of the high rise from the 14th floor. Him and the employee that he had, or the coworker, had dropped a 14-foot L angle, steel L angle, into a parking lot of a grocery store that was next to the building, and he couldn't see it land.
Oh,
And so he was running down the stairs thinking he killed someone. He called me as he was running down, just terrified. And luckily nobody got killed. It was a very significant near miss. But investigation poked holes in the kind of the processes that we had, because it was still very reactive, being paper based. You don't really know what you're doing until that documentation comes in. And I personally also got written up for that, running the company, and that was a wake up call. We've had lots of failures in construction. That's how my career was built. That's how you grow and learn. But we couldn't actually get past the point of like, we're going to do this again if we don't actually change the way we're doing safety and start innovating around safety. And so that drove me to try and find a software. Couldn't find a software, so a friend that I knew in the tech space helped me to build it, and then that was the that was the catalyst to create Salus.
yeah, for sure. Now, um, how are the early days? Because you had a friend, which is helpful, right? Not everyone has a friend that can build something like that. Um, did you bootstrap it? What'd you do? Like, how'd you get the support to get off the ground?
Yeah, I think in some of these cases, as a first time founder, and especially a first time, like I was running in a partnership role in that other company, but I didn't found that company. Um, and so shifting from construction to a completely different vertical, software, which I didn't even own a laptop when I started the company. Tech stack that we used at the company we were at was like emails and text messages. I think just as I left, we started to try a Dropbox. It was a huge culture shift, but I think ignorance was bliss in that situation. Like I didn't know anything about SaaS, didn't even know what the word SaaS was. My co-founder Robbie, who is the technical guy, owned a company that built mobile apps and web apps, and so he knew how to build product. I knew what the industry needed, and so we were kind of blinded by all the other stuff. And I'm not going to say that makes it easier. It definitely helped us to focus though, because we didn't. We're like I had the I was I had the opportunity to bootstrap it for at least a year myself, and so we had the opportunity to just kind of focus in on how do we build a product, then how do we get these first customers that I had a network of people that actually pretty quickly runs out when you're trying to sell them a software in construction at that time of the software evolution. Um, and then where we really start to feel the pain is as we start to figure out how to scale this company. Like I still remember having to do demos with Robbie because I didn't know how to actually connect my computer to the TV and my phone to the computer. And so he had to come with me in person to do all these demos. And then at one point, he's like, Gabe, we got to figure this out. I need to be coding the software, not selling the software and presenting. And then we figured that out, but I would still, I knew how to sell to like 10 people. And we had like 10 people we had to build, companies we had to build relationships with in construction. I had to figure out how to scale to thousands in software, but you don't know what you don't know. So at the beginning, I would actually literally do everything in person. So if we had a customer, a company, not a customer, a company in Alberta that was like potentially interested, just wanted to see the product, I would literally fly out there and line as many as I could up and like demo them in person the product. And like for the most part, none of them would sign up out of the gates. Um,
I mean, how
and
much did that help you though? I mean, there's those like origin stories like Airbnb where they find a cluster of customers and they'd go sleep on their couch and learn about that. Like, how much did it help you on at least what was not working?
I mean, it's not even an early stage thing. I think it's a persona thing where founders gravitate to what's not working constantly. So I'm not free of what's not working right now. Like every single day I wake up and there's things that that we have to fix because they're not working, or they haven't evolved over the months, or we haven't progressed in a year, and it's like it's a problem, right? So the problems are different than when we had two employees and we were incredibly inefficient in signing up, or we didn't have a CRM or any of these tools to manage. But the problems were just different. We had to find a way, like we were on site with the customer. We didn't even have the ability to sign forms at the beginning. Like it was very basic functionality where we would just be right there with the trade worker on site, which is not foreign to me. I'm more comfortable on a job site than in an office. And we would be just sitting there working with them to create this product. And I think some of that, as you start to scale, it becomes hard. That becomes a problem, right? The problem was we were on site too much. Now I'm always pushing our team to get on site more,
Yes, yes, yes.
right? You like, how do we get out of this site to actually start selling and scaling this business? Then it's like, oh shit, sorry, we need to get back on site now because our team that we've built, we can't have all construction workers building software. It would be a nightmare. So you have to have this balance. I think we have about an 80% is software background, 20% has either construction tech or actual construction background. And so it's this weird constant spinning of plates and balance that you have to do and figure out, and it doesn't get easier. It just gets it just changes.
Yeah. Well, it's just because everything does always change, right? And I guess that's the opportunity and that's the challenge, right? If nothing changed, then this technology company, there would have been no need. But then because it's changing, where you were at before, at some point becomes no good. Like you try things, something works, you systemize around that, and at some point it stops working or stops working well, not well enough to be, something's got to be changed. So interesting.
Yeah. And everything's an evolution. Everyone, when you look at something from the outside looking in, any of these incredible companies that we've seen in the world that have grown exponentially or whatever it may be, or your own business that you might be running, from the outside looking in, sometimes it feels like, oh, that company just exploded. They hit gold. It just boom. And every so often you might have an aspect of your business or they did strike gold in a certain way. But for the most part, it's just constantly making incremental changes to progress forward and never being okay with the status quo. And it's always grinding at, I found the outside edges of this box that I'm in. I'm not okay with it. How do I push out and keep growing? And it's like this obsession that you have. And then eventually you look back and you're like, wow, if you train yourself to look back, because a lot of it is hard to be like, whoa, this is what we actually did. um, is that incremental progression. It's not this like magic thing that you created that all of a sudden you're like 0 to 1 billion. That's that's not reality.
Yeah.
And so it's constantly solving these problems all the time to create progress. I don't know. It's a
Yeah.
very interesting world
Yeah.
creation.
Well, that sort of, you have to grind out everything and it accumulates and it grows. It doesn't make for a very good book though, but in pretty much most cases, that's what it is.
I don't think any book in the moment is good. It's when you look back at it in accumulation that it becomes good,
Yeah.
right?
For sure, for sure. That must have helped you though. I mean, in terms of like not having the tech background, because the thing is, it had to be easy, right? If I need to be able to use it, right? Because you had your friend that was helping you do sales demos. Well, that technology better be easy to use for me, because that's I am the person that you have to be able to educate into.
Yeah, it absolutely had to be easy. I think it's one of the hardest things I struggled with in this transition was not knowing how to build software. I came from running a company where if I needed to, I could still strap on the belt and get to work. I think it was like the last 6 months before I left and started Salus, I was on the top of a high rise installing the windscreen because our
Yeah,
foreman had to go on vacation and the project it was going for occupancy and it needed to get done. I was like, okay,
yeah,
I'm here, I'm doing it. Right. And that's good and bad. It's probably more bad than good that you can do those things because you end up pulling yourself too deep into the weeds constantly that you can't actually captain the ship.
yeah,
And so I couldn't do that. I still today cannot code or understand code at all. And so I constantly have to manage in a different way. And it forces me because I've still created a box that I live in now where I am influenced by my understanding of technology now and software now where I'm no longer that persona of the field worker or construction manager, right? And so by not learning how to code, I don't go too far down that valley, but I'm still it's a balance, right? Because you're right. It has to be when you're building software for field level workers in construction, you have to understand who they are and meet them where they are. And meeting them where they are does not mean that they're not intelligent or they're not tech savvy. Like trade workers in the field are some of the most tech savvy and innovative and intelligent human beings on the planet. I've been there. We built incredible stuff together. But for the most part, that innovation doesn't happen without a value exchange. And software struggles at the field to create a proper value exchange for the trade worker because software doesn't solve problems, it creates problems. But for us, safety introduced the problem that software could solve that started creating this value exchange. But you actually have to make sure that you're meeting them where they are to ensure that that adoption happens, so that this, I know that sounds all messy and complicated, but there's so much theoretical stuff that has to or there's so much around the mind that you have to understand when you're breaking into the construction tech. It's
Mm,
just the way people work, the way that they learn, the things that they do are so different. You can't take standard traditional software practices and just force them on an industry. It doesn't work. You have to understand them.
yeah. Yeah, you basically, I mean, yeah, different things, but at a base level, if someone is doing this addition, quote unquote, new thing or additional work in the field, it's what's in it for them.
It's any human. What's in it for that individual? Is it solving a problem, or is it the top down push to say, I need you to do this for me? If you do it the right way, there can always be a value exchange. And some of it is just better explaining.
That's true. Better explain. Yeah, I guess so. I guess, communication, right? I think an overlooked thing sometimes, a simple thing as communicating a little bit better. I think sometimes, like for me, I think you have to do something splashy in terms of, oh, this initiative or whatever. But most of the time, better communication solves the problem.
For the most part, even if it's not a direct value exchange where it's like, hey, I'm doing this, I physically get this out of it, people want to be a part of something. And so if you are a company that is just forcing decisions down, and which are always a game of telephone, sounds great at senior management, middle management loses the message. By the time it gets to the trade worker, the message is just do this. They don't feel like they're a part of anything. They feel like I'm doing this in servitude to the company. But if you explain to them what we're trying to accomplish as a company and as a team, and they can start contributing to that overall success, then that changes. It's a simpler way of creating that value exchange, but you have a much better shot. Instead of saying you go do this, saying what do you think about this? How do you think we can achieve this?
Yeah,
For the most part, these business decisions that happen not all construction companies, but a lot of the times they happen in the office without that individual that you're making the decisions for. Get a foreman in the room as you're just choosing software or deciding to do business decision or activities. Makes a huge difference.
yeah. So, I mean, do you go to the foreman directly? Like, what does your sales process look like now?
So sales process, we have what, 7 regions now across North America where we have in territory representatives to build relationships, because the construction is built on the foundation of relationships and true partnerships, and that's one of our core values, is that we are not a standard software company that just cares about logos. We're building a business with the foundation of true partnerships and relationships. So step one, go out there, meet with the individuals that have the pain, find out, can we solve the pain with our solution? And if you can, then build that relationship. And a lot of the times, sure, it might start sometimes with a conversation with someone in the field, but for the most part, it starts with a safety professional or an executive that is really struggling with health and safety, administrative stuff, and then it ends up getting down to the field.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Um, as you the organization has grown, what sort of specific things are you focused on improving or are curious about?
Every kind of month, it change. Well, overall, I'm focused on. I think at the beginning we were being pulled into innovation by our customers, so most of our customers were drowning in this administrative burden around health and safety, and they couldn't get their head above water to truly get back to what mattered, which was making the worker safer. This pendulum had shifted to protect the company. We have to make sure all these boxes are checked to the company's protected. And so for the first for even now, a lot of our focus has been around how do we eliminate that administrative burden to empower safety professionals and workers to get back to what either they do best, which is building, or actually ensuring that safety is progressing and moving forward. And so that's kind of a day to day. Strategically, how we go about our go to market strategy around how are we expanding across North America. But I think where my real passion is how do we change the way safety is being done today? Because when I look at safety processes today, we have made a lot of progress over the last 10 years. We are in a better place than we were for sure with the compliance based, performance based mindset around safety. But I think it's plateaued where the form, like a lot of people don't realize safety programs are built. Proof of following these safety programs are typically translated into fill out a form to prove you're following it. What people don't get is those forms are actually they're designed to actually make a worker stop and think and break up complacency. They're designed to actually make a worker safer. The problem is the form isn't doing that anymore. The worker thinks the form is a barrier to their work and just being done to protect the company. They don't view it as something that I'm filling out to protect myself. Training, 2-hour long training classes don't resonate, right? You absorb 5% of it, and 6 months later, you have 1%. And guess what? You have to renew it 3 years later. And so, where I'm really focused on is how do we get back to actually moving safety forward? How do we get back to creating the vision here is how do you create an intuitive safety process that is a part of the operational aspect of day-to-day work for a worker? How do you get them to use safety powered by software as intuitively as they use a hammer or a skill saw? You don't have to tell a worker to use a hammer at 8 a.m. on every day of the week and a skill saw at 10 a.m. on Friday. That's what safety is today. Do your hazard assessment every day, do your toolbox talk on Friday. With that mindset, it means that it's not really clicking. If you can make in safety as intuitive as a hammer, they're going to reach for safety powered by software anytime that they do a task, naturally and intuitively. And if you can achieve that, it changes the entire foundation of construction in the field. And you do that through the conduit of a smartphone. But the value exchange has to happen. How do you get them to look at a smartphone and software like they look at their hammer? It's solving a problem for them. I'm going to reach for it when I need it. Is it access to information? Is it that when they fill out these forms, they believe that they're getting something out of that themselves, right? And so I could go on for hours about that, but that's really where
Yeah.
I want to that's what gives me passion.
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah, I mean, it like you said, it's how do you communicate that better, and how do you teach other people to communicate that better for better adoption and results?
And how do you build a software that actually provides that and isn't just smoke and mirrors of the thought or the visually you can sell that it does that, but the trade worker sees right through that. Is it actually achieving what you are intending it to achieve? Because unfortunately, safety sucks. We don't like safety, and
Mhm.
intuitively we as human beings create complacency. It's a natural occurrence so that we can progress and match that with time to value, and it's like the catalyst for incidents, right? Become complacent. We want to move faster. Mix the other ingredients in there, like whatever conditions need to be present for an incident, and an incident will happen. And so, how do you make it so that they start to see some level of value, which you would think going home safe is that value, but that's not human nature. You don't associate those two things together, right?
Yeah, and it sucks
So,
that something has to happen for it to tighten up for a little bit.
and even then, sometimes it doesn't. Like it's you don't know what you don't know. I've been a part or around many incidents in my career, and it was only once I started to fully understand safety as lead core forced me to then and all the other contractors around started to follow suit. We hired a safety professional that gave me more education around these things. I found myself falling asleep at night or trying to fall asleep at night, not thinking anymore about, okay, are we behind schedule? Are we going to make money on this job? Where do I have to pull crews from? It was, do I have a 20-year-old window installer on the side of the building today or tomorrow that has fall protection training that actually expired 3 months ago that we don't know about because the certificate's in their pocket? I was thinking about those, which then when we did have the incident, it was so top of mind that that's the straw that broke the camel's back. But 5 years before that, that same incident or similar had happened. It just, you don't know what you don't know, right? I didn't realize the the liability that safety had on our business and myself before that. It just wasn't front and center of my mind.
Hmm. Yeah, interesting. Now, I mean, one aspect, I'm always curious about is, you go from, construction a company, which is, very stressful, right? High rise as well, but entrepreneurship can be very, very stressful. I mean, I think you're, I guess 7.5 more years into it. Has it become less stressful for you? Like, I know starting is very stressful, in terms of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, it's stress in different ways. So when I was running the construction company, it would not be abnormal to get 100 phone calls by 11:30 in the afternoon.
Wow.
Um, uh, 50 text messages and 40 to 80 emails, right? Um, and every phone call you get wasn't like, "Hey, just wanted to let you know everything's great."
Yeah,
It's
you're
like,
doing a great job. Keep up the
yeah,
great work.
yeah. It's a problem constantly that needs to get solved. They're not always angry phone calls like, "Hey, your crew didn't show up to they were supposed to be there," which is a constant battle being a sub. You have to always manage the lack of workforce and move them from job site to job site. But they were always problems that you always had to be on in that regard. Now, I don't get phone calls now. If you look at my phone, I can scroll back for like 3 weeks in phone calls. Like before I could scroll back like half a day, right? Um, so I don't get phone calls, and I get a manageable amount of emails, and for the most part, it's all spam. But I would say the stress is very different now. I have the pressure of growth. Like, we're VC backed. Um, SaaS companies are growth orientated, right?
Yeah,
We are in the best position to be a market leader in construction safety tech, but it's not going to be if we just sit back and let it. It won't just happen.
yeah,
And so the pressure is different, but I would say that the stress is relatively the same in different ways. I don't think I've ever gotten as mad as I have. I definitely haven't gotten as mad as I have as working in construction. Like the conversations you have in construction can get quite heated, and tensions and emotions can rise. And I haven't had that ever happen in this world. It's a different way of operating. I know construction is evolving around that too, but um, yeah, it's different.
yeah, yeah. So, how do you deal with your current stretch? Any strategies? What do you do when you're not working?
That's a good question. It's something I'm constantly working on. I think for me as an individual, it's as much as personal growth and as it is business growth that I've had to work on in the evolution here. That started when I was 21 years old in construction, when I went from like being the worker to managing a small group of workers, to now where we just hired an incredible team of leaders that have, some of them have 35 years experience in construction tech, to manage our departmental leads, CROs, head of growth, where they are absolutely light years ahead of what I where I am in those departments. So figuring out how to lead and manage those people is a very, it's an evolution, right? But then there's all the other investor aspects, growth, figuring out strategic uh, solutions to how we're going to win this market, falls on your shoulders a lot of the times. When I was talking to another founder about this, and I was saying, a lot of people, like, when you tell them what you're struggling with or the problem you're trying to solve, a lot of times people are like, yeah, it'll work itself out. I'm sure everything will be fine. And you're like, yeah. Well, guess what? I mean, yeah, it probably will work itself out, but the person that has to actually do that is sitting right in front of you. It won't just happen. And so when you look back, it's like, yeah, how do we get through that? I'm not saying I do, like, I am not the reason for our company's success, but all of our leaders in the problems that land on their shoulders, those things don't get solved with them just saying they're going to get solved. They actually have to put that on their back and figure out how to solve it. And that doesn't change as a CEO. You have different problems that you have to solve. So it gets very stressful sometimes, I will admit. And for me, it's exercise. And I've also started to work on my mind more. So I've downloaded this app called Waking Up to work on mindfulness, um, making sure, which I've struggled with in the last year, taking time to actually disconnect so that I'm not too deep in the weeds. And I found that in recent events in the last year, I haven't actually disconnected, and I need to. I need to go surfing, which I love to do, but not
Oh,
work. Like, shut the phone off for 4 days and just surf. And I have two young kids, and so, like, it's like you're always going, and that can be very hard.
yeah. Where do you surf?
I actually went surfing last week. I decided Tuesday night, I talked to my wife. I was like, I need to go. I just need to go surf. And so I went to Tofino
Okay.
for 3 days and worked from there and surfed. Um, but the key is I need to go somewhere and not work from there. The problem with working in software is you can work from anywhere. So I'm turning 40 this year. It's my wife's 10-year and my 10-year anniversary as well. So I might find a way to just go surfing with the two of us maybe and turn my phone off for a few days. That's my goal.
There you go. Love it. Um, Anything else, that I didn't ask you that you wanted to share about what you're doing or lessons you learned?
Oh, there's so many things that I could share. I think depends who we're talking to. What's the demographic of individuals that typically are listening? Is
I
it
mean,
all?
business people in construction or, entrepreneur-minded people.
Hmm. I think one of the things, maybe this is just what I struggle with, and I'm sure some people are further ahead of this than I am, or maybe they're not. Maybe this helps, but you're not alone. It may feel like you're alone as a founder and a leader of a business where there's no one above you in the org chart. It may feel like you're alone, um, because you don't want to put the weight of your problems on the people that are reporting to you. The people outside of the business won't understand sometimes, so it's hard to speak to individuals about what you're going through, and it's not connecting. You're not alone. Founders, I find, have this curse where we're constantly putting ourselves in states that we feel like, you feel trapped sometimes. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Keep doing what you did to get the business to where it is today. Um, and keep finding incredible people that will empower you and your business to do better. Because I can tell you right now, it is not us that are the reason for the success when the story's over. It's the team that you put together that create the lifeblood of the business, and continue to put the business first, but not first. That's the wrong way of, when you're making decisions, put the business in the center and make sure you're making the right decision for the business. Because a lot of times things can become distractions around how you feel, someone else feels, a customer feels, whatever it may be. Always put that business in the middle and say, okay, what's best for the business right now, in the future, whatever it may be. Um, and make sure you take care of yourself. Take the time that you need to recharge, because if you do break, um, it's hard to put back together.
Great
Take the
advice.
time. Yeah.